Hello, and in this Mac app development tutorial, we're going to talk about NS pop-up button, or rather, what the item that you use to create drop-down menus in macOS. Now, there's already a video about this on YouTube, showing you how to add items, react to items being selected and stuff, things like that. But there's what was missing in my mind, a crucial element: how we can add items to this menu dynamically based on objects on the system. So if you want a user to be able to select a camera or a microphone or a language, that's not a static set of items that they can choose from. They have to be able to select from those at runtime. So how do we do that? Well, that's what we're going to look at how to do today. We're going to look at briefly at the basic aspects of it, and then we're going to dive into that. So if we look at my screen here, I've just got a simple Xcode project open here with a main window, as we've seen before, with its own window controller doing proper window management, and then I've just got an object here, my interface controller, which I'm gonna connect all my items to, and use that to write my code. So let's dive in and grab a NS pop-up button out of the object palette and see what it looks like. So there we have an NS pop-up button. There's something very important that we need to pay attention to down here. That's that within this sub item drawing context, what we've got in there is a menu. So even though we might not see that all the time, what we're adding when we add items to a drop down is we're actually constructing an NS menu with NS menu items. So that's what we're interacting with. So how do we add a menu item to this? Well, quite simply, as you might expect, given what I've just said, we can just drag on an menu item. So we can just say menu item, drag it in there, and by default it puts it up here. I'm not sure why, but you can just drag it down into there. If I can do it properly. So there's my extra item, very nice. Well, how do I get control of this? Well, what it does is anytime this menu is interacted with, it sends an IB action, so we don't have to do any delegation. We just every time this menu gets interacted with, we get sent an IB action, which just tells us what's the currently selected menu item. So how do we deal with that? Well, like always, we need an IB action pointing from this to our code. So in order to do that, I'm just going to open a split view, one side with my interface and the other side with my code. So I've got that interface controller class open here on the other side. So, and I want the original source. For some reason it's showing me the generated source, but so what do I want to do with this button? Well, I want to drag an outlet from that, and make sure you're getting the button itself and not one of the internal menu items. You want to be dragging from the button itself, so the very top level. So I'm just going to control drag from there to my code. And like I said, to start off with, we're just going to add in an action. We're actually also going to need an outlet when we're interacting with the contents of the menu, but for now we're just going to add an action because we're just doing a simple case. So I'm just going to say item chosen, and in this case, more than ever, I need not to leave this type as any. I need to leave it as a pop-up button because I need to be able to use this type to access the item that's clicked. So I'm going to change this from any to NS pop-up button, and you're going to see right now why that's important. What we're going to do, just for an example, to show you how you would get the menu item, is we're just going to say we're just going to print to the console sender. So that's that object that we passed on, whichever object sent that out to, and then from that we want to get a property from it, which is selected item. And notice that's an optional NS menu item. Well, why is it an optional? Well, because it might someone might not have selected a menu item yet, so that's why it's an optional. So that's the one we want. In my case, I'm just going to say that I know when someone will have selected the item, so I'll just put an exclamation mark after that optional to say I want to either unwrap it or crash. And what object do I want from that? What part of the selected item do I want? Well, I want its title. If I run that, each time I select an item, it should print out the name of the item in the console. Yes, it did, so that's very simple. We've not really seen much yet. All we've seen in addition to that other video is it's an NS menu underneath, and that's a critical thing to remember. Actually, while we're on the subject, I'm gonna go into the definition of this class, and we're going to look at the code for it, and we're going to see that one option it has is the menu, so you can actually directly get the menu that's associated with this button by just saying .menu, and we're going to talk about that later. So if we're going to add these items dynamically, we don't want any items to be loaded in Interface Builder, so now, where is a good place to add our items? Where in code are we going to be able to access the information we want to access, but it's early enough so that the user doesn't see the items being added? Well, in the case of this generic class that's loaded in our nib file, if it was a window controller, we might be able to say when the window loaded, but because this is a generic class that's added in a nib file, we can just say when you awake from nib. So this is a method or an action message that's sent to all objects from a nib file when they're first loaded. So that seems like a good place to do it way before the user has seen it. So now we want to do something to our pop-up item. Well, we don't have a reference to our pop-up yet. We have an action, but we don't have an IB outlet reference to it, so we need to add one. So I'm going to go back into our main window and just say go back to one of our other top level objects, which is our interface controller, and again we want to drag from the very top level of our button but this time we're going to add an outlet, and again the type here is very important. So I'm just going to say Dropdown. So I can now refer to this dropdown when this window is first initialized and influence things about it. So I'm just going to go back to our controller class, and what are we gonna do for this example? Well, I'll just show you first that we could add do this very simply. So if we just say, well, as soon as our objects are loaded, what we want to do is get our drop down, and we can add items. There's also very similar remove items. We can actually add items which are an array of strings, so that's the one I'm going to choose. So I can then just provide an array of our different items, and then these will be what gets shown in our menu. And then if I run that, we see that I've got those items, and then I can just query them the same way by saying what's the title. But anyway, we wanted to use some default system behavior. So what's an example of that? Well, I'm going to use the AV Foundation framework to get what are currently listed of recording devices. Say we wanted to allow a user to select what device they wanted to use our app to record with. That's kind of a real world case. So we're just going to say import AV Foundation. Now this isn't strictly part of the tutorial, but we know that we can get a list of the currently available devices by using something in the AV Foundation API. So I'm just going to say let devices equals AV capture device. Sorry, AV capture device dot devices, whatever the result of that is. You might think, well, I can just put that into our output that into our add item somewhere, but like many things that I want to use for this, that doesn't return an array of strings, which is what this requires. So we need to not just get it, but also loop through it. So in this case, we can just say for each device in our devices collection, we're just gonna do something very similar to this. Actually, for every device, we're gonna take our drop down and we're gonna add an item. Now this even add item expects a string. So how are we gonna get a string out of this? Well, and this is something you need to think about when you're dealing with things that aren't strings. Is how am I going to make this into a string? Well, I know, for example, that the this device is of type AB capture device, so that's not a string. But how can I get a string out of it? Well, I know there's a method that I can use, so I can say device, which will be this one device that we're currently dealing with, and you can see that was an AV capture device. I can say device dot localize name, and I can see from here that will return a string, so that will satisfy the requirements of this API. So what we're doing, we're getting the list of things we want to get, and we're looping through them and adding an item with the name of that device into our drop down each time. So if we run this, hopefully if I've done everything right, because it's in our awake from nib, it will happen way before the user sees the UI. So when we run, we should have a list of our devices. And if we open our array, we see we do have a list of our devices. Okay, so I hope that showed you kind of a practical example of how you can actually use NS pop-up button, and how you can get kind of coerce system APIs into giving you the information you want. Often you want to load items into your view before the user sees the view, and if you have no other option, like if it's not a view controller, so you don't have view did load, a great place to do that is your awake from nib file. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. NS pop-up button is a really simple class but really powerful. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next Mac programming tutorial. Bye bye.